before we go anywhere, I first and foremost hope that you are staying safe, that you are staying healthy, that you are being good to yourself and to the people around you, for the love of God. I just hope you're okay. I hope you're okay. I'm Owen. Thank you for being here today. This is an interesting one I've got for you today. As I mentioned yesterday, I've committed to reaching out and finding stories and information to just share here on Facebook, and to share with you a little bit about my process, what I am reflecting on as I'm going through this, and how we're going forward. But basically, I'm having I had a tricky revelation the other day. Maybe it was just yesterday. So in the past, what's up, Jeff? Well, we'll talk about All Lives Matter. So in the past, when Black Lives Matter has come up, my immediate reaction has always been to say, all lives matter. That's the important part, right? And at the end of the day, yes, that is true, that all life on this planet is valuable and needs to be looked after. But I'm realizing where I was mistaken about trying to turn Black Lives Matter into All Lives Matter, and why it is so important that we have Black Lives Matter specifically now. And in the same way, and I am totally going to call my LGBT brothers and sisters to this one, especially our white LGBT brothers and sisters to this one, for the same reason that we have a pride parade every year is why it's really important. So as I have been realizing that I have had, I'm realizing that I've had some mistakes in my mindset, a mindset that I no longer wanted to keep with me, I will admit, there's a little bit of shame to that when I take a look at how I had thought before, and I look at that now in a different mindset to see why it's important to focus on Black Lives Matter instead of just All Lives Matter. At this moment, there's a little bit of shame in that for me, and that's what this growth is. That's what I'm doing. It's what I'm asking everybody to do. It's what I'm asking you to do, to sit with that discomfort. So I just want to let you know that is happening. That's what I'm working on at the moment, and that's what sort of factors into what I want to talk to you about today. So here in West Hollywood, we've had a lot of protest activity, and these streets are also historically protest places. This is where LA Pride happens. This is where all kinds of history has happened. Rock and roll, the history of rock and roll up on the Sunset Strip, all kinds of things. Like, there was even Sunset Strip riots, I think, in like the 60s or something like that. But this is where a lot of this stuff happens. And it's certainly happening a lot right now. And it's kicking up a lot of emotions. There's a lot of activity over here, and there's a lot of different viewpoints about it. This is a place where we all like to believe that we are totally progressive and totally open and totally accepting. But I think that we will find that even here, even in the most of progressive and opening and accepting of places, that look, people have different experiences. And when people with different experiences bump up against each other, then this is what happens, right? So we either understand each other or we have at it. And that's where we're at right now. And that's the choice that we're faced with. So as a lot of these protests are coming here into West Hollywood, yesterday our Mayor Lindsay Horvath, just released actually on Twitter some guidelines for white people. I'm going to try to flip my screen over here so you can see this. Some guidelines for white people in this time. Maybe I can zoom in on this. I don't know if I can. Let's see. Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, so basically, guidelines, if you're going to show up, a white person to show up at a black-led protest, or people of color-led protest, here's some advice. So I'm going to read these in case you can't see them. So, this is a black issue. The call needs to be Black Lives Matter, not All Lives Matter. Sometimes the best way to ensure that all lives matter is to give black people room to own a space. Protest from our position being, from the people putting this together. So, for example, don't join in on the chant, whose streets, our streets. These streets are not our streets. Instead, carry signs and participate in chants that challenge white supremacy. Here's something. Call in and collect white folks who are causing harm. Meet level of escalation with the police. Don't exceed that. Do not start chants yourself, and do not grab the mic. And be mindful the actions being organized and led by Black-led organizations. Follow the leadership of the organizers as it relates to the march route, and direct people who may have questions to the identified points of contact. Unless you have been directly asked, your role is not to be a spokesperson or liaison with police or press. And then become familiar with the target of goals of each action, especially reading any sources recommended by the organizers. So there's that. Let's just flip back over here. So as I read that, right, and a lot of people say, well, this seems really discriminatory. Why put out, guidelines for white people? What about other ethnicities and what have you? This seems like it is just perpetuating the cycle. And as I see that in the past, I normally would have been exactly right there on board with that. But here is the case with this. As I see this now, I think to myself, over so many years with LA Pride, I was involved with the organization that puts it on for a few years a while back. And one of the constant conflicts that comes up in the LGBT community, and especially around Pride, is the attitude around allies, straight allies. Do we bring them in, or do we just keep this as something that is just for us? How do we engage straight allies? But one of the things that almost always happens as there is inclusion of straight allies is a straight ally with good intentions will make the show about themselves. And they will cause outrage in the gay community when that happens. And so many people will come up to them and just say, no, this is not about you. This is our fight because we need attention on the issues that the LGBT community goes through and has gone through and will go through to bring attention to them. And LGBT people are the very first to leap on any straight ally who might be co-opting the message away from what we're talking about there. And rightfully so, because we do the Pride Parade, when we do the Pride Parade, to draw this attention. It needs to happen because LGBT people are killed, are beaten, what have you, attacked, whatever. It is important to have that time specifically for that. And if anybody came out and just said, yeah, well, we're all the same during a Pride Parade, you better believe that there is going to be sequence in the streets. So that being said, this is the time for us to talk about Black lives. A Black man has been killed by police, by the people who were supposed to protect him in broad daylight in a pretty vicious and uncaring way. And we are all now asked to take a look at where we all stand with this. And this is where I'm taking a step back as well to see where do I fit into all of this, how can I help, and what is about me, and what part it just is not about me at all. And understanding that, and that sometimes is the most uncomfortable piece about it. And I will say this, in our LGBT community, when we are used to being out there and demonstrating and getting the attention and all of that, this might be our time to let our brothers and sisters have their moment because they really, really need it, okay? So as I am going through all of this, here's the checklist that I have put together for myself as a white person in this situation, and that I am checking anything that I am doing, sharing, what have you, against this checklist. This is just mine. You can use it if you want, but I'm sharing it with you in case it is useful to you as well. So step number one, I asked myself, if I'm going to do something, is it going to help or am I just adding to the problem? Step number one, will I still do it even if I'm not going to get any credit for it? Am I still going to do this thing, this volunteer, activism, say something, stand up, whatever? Am I going to do this thing even if I won't get any credit for it? Now, if the answer is no, like if the whole idea is that I'm just going to go do something just to get the credit for it, then I already know it's not helping. It's already not going to help, so I could just stop right there, okay? So if I am going to do it because it is the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it even if I'm not going to get any credit for it, then yes, I will continue on to the next step. And the next step is, am I listening and following instead of talking and leading? Now, this is an interesting one because obviously here I'm talking to you, right? So, and I would normally say yes. If you are listening and following, then you can continue. You don't want to be talking and leading. I'm talking to you now. Why? I don't believe that it is helpful for me to just shut up and stand by. What I am doing instead is taking a platform that I have developed and using it to share information from other people. I'm trying to keep my personal opinions out of it. I am sharing with you my process and my thoughts, but that is what I'm checking this against right now. So are you listening and following instead of talking and leading? The answer is yes. You can move on to the last one. And the last piece is, are you learning and growing through this process? Are you learning and growing through what it is that you're doing? And if the answer is yes, go do it. Go do it. And if you're not, then what the hell are you doing it for? If you're not learning and growing in the process of helping, then that's really sort of missing the point. All of this that is happening right now is because we're missing understanding between each other. And we have been for long before any of us watching this have been born. And that's hard to deal with, but we must find that understanding, and that requires learning and growing to do that. So that's the checklist that I run everything. Will you still do it, even if you're not going to get any credit for it? Are you listening and following instead of talking and leading? And are you learning and growing in the process? Doing those three things, from what I can gather so far, sounds like it's helping. Okay? So there's that for today. I hope that you are staying safe and healthy. Hit me up. Take care. Be awesome. Be understanding. Get uncomfortable. You're supposed to do it. There's support for it. Let's all do it. Okay? Don't stop the work. Talk to you tomorrow.